Hi, I'm Tom Donahue, your host for another edition of BROC Talk Program Spotlight. So this is a new edition of BROC Talk where we're focusing on specific programs within BROC Community Action right here in your own community so that folks learn about what we're doing and important programs that are helping our community as well as how to access those programs. And so today on the program we have Amy Fales. Now Amy is the head of one of our programs called CACFP. And there's a lot of acronyms in this world, but that one stands for Child and Adult Care Food Program. And why is that important? Well, we're supporting through BROC Community Action in the counties of Rutland, Bennington, and Addison, daycares. And as many of you know and have read about and heard about these days or are feeling yourself, how important daycares have become. Because it allows parents, mom and dad, etc., to be able to work and be gainfully employed. At the same time, being able to, have their children in a really tremendous environment throughout the day at one of our strong daycares in the region. So we're proud to be able to support that through the CACFP program, the Child and Adult Care Food Program. And now to tell us all about that program, and so you'll know more, and if you're interested how to access it too, is Amy Fales. Amy, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tom.
So you've been let's start with the basics, and because you have some experience, so let's talk about how long you've been doing this for BROC Community Action.
I do have a little bit of experience. I started in this program in 2008, so I'm on my 14th year in the program, and I'm happy to say that it just continues to improve, and we build upon it every year.
Yeah, so 14 years, I mean, that's tremendous. And you've moved up to now, actually, you're running the program at BROC Community Action, and so you're heading the whole thing up. But certainly, when we had that opportunity to advance you there, we looked at your experience and said, gosh, that's an easy choice, and one, bringing not only the experience that you have, Amy, but the continuity to the program and the consistency, because if we want to let viewers know, where this program comes from, it's sort of a nationally supported state program.
That's correct. It's actually administered and funded by the USDA, so it's a federal program. And then it's managed within each state at the highest tier through the state agency, in our case, the Agency of Education, and then entities like ourselves that sponsor at county level. So like you mentioned, we cover Addison, Rutland, and Bennington. So this program is designed to offer financial support to childcare providers, and it's so critical. Especially nowadays with rising costs.
Especially.
Yeah. Oh, we all feel the pinch at the grocery store, that's for sure.
Right.
And this is a nutrition program, so the layman's explanation of it would be in exchange for elevating the level of nutrition in these child cares, the providers get a partial monetary reimbursement from the federal government. There's a little bit more, they have to follow certain, what we call meal patterns. Basically, they have to serve specific meal components each meal, and the idea is to start the children at such a young age, their most formative years, with good, healthy eating habits, because they'll carry those habits up into adulthood. So,
great point.
Yeah.
Great point.
So engaging the children early at their most formative years is critical to creating healthier adults.
Great point. And what is the span of years that the children that are served by these daycares? I think it probably starts with infants.
Yep, it starts at birth, and the program cutoff for CACFP is 13 years old.
Okay.
There are other programs, by the time the child's 13, obviously they're in school, so there are sister programs like the after-school meals and other programs that
complementary programs
that pick up where
to it.
Where that left off. But for those 0 to 12-year-olds, they are they're in our scope. So,
So, and tell us about the number of daycares that you're working with currently, which is a pretty impressive number.
It is. I currently have 41 homes
That's phenomenal.
throughout the 3 counties, and each and every one of them are dedicated to all aspects of childcare, not just nutrition, but they are phenomenal providers, and they deserve a pat on the back for the hard work that they do.
So I'm going to ask some of the rudimentary questions because I know, for instance, when I think about it, I instantly think lunch. Yeah, but I know it's actually more than lunch.
Yeah, so they are able to claim reimbursement for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack. It is capped off at 3 meals per day, so they can do
any 3 of that combination.
Exactly.
Wow, that's wonderful.
And currently, we have our fingers crossed. We've been pushing the U.S. Congress to pass the Child Nutrition Reauthorization Act, which, should that get passed finally, that would allow providers to claim an additional meal or snack. So that would be 4 versus the 3, which is huge because a lot of these kiddos, their moms and dads work, 9 to 5s. They're in care for 10 plus hours a day. They're there for more than just 3 meals. So.
Boy, that's wonderful. And the other important thing about, of course, just the opportunity to have some reimbursement for feeding them is the nutritional aspect, obviously. And so that is the whole idea of the program, in order to make sure that you're following certain guidelines. And now, being the neophyte here, asking the questions, I'm assuming that guideline comes from the USDA?
Yeah, so what the USDA does is they take a combined effort of the dietary guidelines for Americans, the Institute of Medicine, the Institute of Child Nutrition, and they take those 3 entities and their current recommendations and kind of develop what their goals are. And the good thing is that in recent years, those entities have also decided, hey, we're working towards the same goal, we're going to work together. So there's a lot of continuity between the 3, whereas in the past there was a little bit of disconnect. So the message is becoming clearer and more concise, and everybody's aiming for the same stuff. So that makes it much easier to give that information to the providers and educate them.
Well, and I want to get into that a little bit too, but I also just want to say, from the aspect of good nutrition, you said formative years, and these children are growing, and at the daycares they're also learning during the day. They're not all just sitting around. The daycares have developed, programs within the daycares to keep the kids entertained and interacting and learning skills, social skills as well as other skills, which we're not part of, but each one certainly does those things during the day. So for those children to be able to have the proper nutrition so that they're receptive, and it's like why the school meals are so important. When those kids are in school learning, you're at a disadvantage if you're lacking, food. They like to say food insecure. I'm not crazy with that term, but if the kids are hungry,
absolutely,
or if they just don't have the proper nutrition, it can create spikes and so forth. And so, having them at those early stages to have proper nutrition throughout the year is such a great accomplishment.
It is, and it is so critical because, getting into like the science of it all is those brain neurons and those brain connections are being formed at this age. So you want to make sure that they have the proper fuel to make good, solid connections and healthy growth. So
that's what I wanted to say.
Of course it was. So yeah, it is. I can't stress enough how critical it is for good nutrition for everybody, but particularly the young ones.
Exactly. And so when we talk about that nutrition education too, and I want to talk about for a minute, I do want to get in a little bit of the detail of the nutrition itself, and then I also want to talk about sort of the educational piece of what you do too. So, but I think we should kind of get back to basics for a second, because it'd be fun to talk about, what does that mean when we talk about this nutritional food? And I know there's some I almost want to say now, an outsider perspective, I don't run the program, you do. It seems like the guidelines are pretty strict, and they do change.
They do change because science changes, right? And so strict. The two big things is reducing added sugars and added fats.
Got it.
So it's more of a eat this or that kind of mentality. So instead of giving a child a donut, it's a grain, it has some calories in it, not necessarily good calories, serve them a whole grain muffin, or and it doesn't have to be bland. Banana muffins even are acceptable in our program. Zucchini muffins.
I see.
And getting the kids involved with the cooking process too is really key. So touching back to what you were saying about social skills, but also fine motor skills, it also has, I've seen demonstrated time and time again, that when the kids are involved in the process of cooking, preparing, gardening even, it changes their attitude about food versus having a plate set down in front of them and saying...
Cleaning up too?
And cleaning, well...
No, but I get your point, and it's a great one.
Yeah.
And one I actually hadn't considered, so I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, actually, we kind of promote, obviously at the end of the day, whatever it takes to get the kiddos to eat their food without making it feel forced, or you want it to be a relaxed environment. You want the kids to make the choices themselves. And so one of the things that we really like to promote is what we call family style service, where instead of pre-plating the meals and putting it in front of the child, you put the serving bowls in the middle of the table as if you would a family dinner. And that way the child has that autonomy to choose, hey, I think I'm going to take some of this, I'm going to take some of that. And what I have personally seen and what I have heard from providers over and over again that have implemented this type of meal service is they're finding that kids are more open to trying new foods, because Johnny's sitting next to his buddy George, and George takes some broccoli, and Johnny's like, oh, my buddy's eating broccoli, I might try it. And they have found not only are the kids more willing to eat more foods, but they're having less waste.
Wow, yeah, I never thought of that. So they see their friend trying something and say, maybe I will try that.
Absolutely.
Versus mom trying to tell them to eat this.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Well, I imagine, and now this might be, I'm just speculating, but I imagine, wow, what a great thing when the parents, pick the children up from the daycare and they go home to, let's say, dinner, and then the child is actually reaching for the broccoli or that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what a great accomplishment.
A lot of times I've heard providers tell stories of parents going, how the heck did you do that? I can't get him to eat anything at home,
That's great.
So it really does make a difference. And
That's
it can be
great.
something as simple as giving the child the choice to put whatever they want on their plate.
So maybe they're teaching mom and dad when they get home, by the way.
I think that happens a lot.
No, just a quick tangent, because I know the acronym CACFP, Child and Adult Care Food Program. What is that adult aspect? I honestly don't know, and that's why I'm throwing the question out there.
So it does cover what we would call an adult daycare. I personally don't have any under my sponsorship. But
okay, but that's under that umbrella.
It is. And
good to know.
Yep, the meal pattern is almost the same with a few very small caveats, but yeah, it covers those adult daycares as well.
Perfect, okay. Yeah, see, I'm trying to learn here today too, so hopefully our viewers are. So for those of you just tuning in, my name is Tom Donahue. I'm the host today for BROC Talk, which we call BROC Talk BROC Talk, we call it Program Spotlight, because what we're trying to do, besides talking about everything Rutland, is talking about everything BROC Community Action, specifically programs within the organization that are important to you, how they're serving your community. And so you have that information, and you may not be in need, but you may know someone that is. And word of mouth is a very great process for referral. We appreciate you bumping into someone who's in need and saying, hey, have you heard about this that I heard on BROC Talk the other day on PEG TV, but also so folks will know how to access programs. We're a very transparent organization, and we want to publicize the programs that we have and get as many people who need access to those programs to take advantage of the local resources at BROC Community Action. So we're doing this through PEG TV now as BROC Talk Program Spotlight to spotlight those important programs within the organization as we bring them to you every day of the week through our tremendous staff located here in Rutland at 45 Union Street, just the other side of the Amtrak station. But you know, we're there every day generally and all day long, and sometimes weekends, like last weekend when we did Wheels for Warmth and things like that. But we're really happy to be working with PEG TV as always to be able to broadcast this important information to you in your homes and through your other ways of garnering information these days, social media and the like. And I should mention, while I'm thinking about it, that we are, of course, on the web, like most, at simply BROC, B-R-O-C, BROC.org. BROC.org. So there's all of our programs on there. You can look at it at any point, and we update it regularly with other current and upcoming programs that we offer for assistance in the region. But also we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so we update social media every day, and so you can see current things happening, not just at BROC Community Action, but we like to also communicate out other important things going on in the community that other organizations or the municipalities are doing as well. So it's kind of the fun aspect of the social media that you can scroll through and find out something that might be going on in your area. So our social medias aren't dedicated to just BROC Community Action, but we kind of like to put a lot of community happenings on there and community opportunities. But the website is very specific about our program, so you can always go to broc.org. And then, of course, we still have a person answering the phones, 2 people actually. So it would only go to voicemail if they were all tied up, but we have 1 and 2 lines to back that up. So you're usually going to get a friendly person answering the phone directly, not the voicemail, at 802, of course, 775-0878, 775-0878. And you'll probably get Claire, you could get Carol, or possibly even Sherry, you know, but you'll get to talk to a person about BROC Community Action's programs and opportunities for you or someone that you may know and want to connect. But getting back to Amy Fales and talking about the area daycares, we're very happy to have this program at BROC Community Action because daycares are so important. They've always been important, but these days when there's often 2 people in the family looking to work to support that family, mom and dad, the daycare is critical. And we still, to a certain extent, I think as a state and probably the nation, lack some access to daycare. So the more we can support those daycares, the better. And Amy Fales works with 41 daycares through this program at BROC Community Action. So getting back to that, I wanted to talk briefly about that educational component because I know that you actually work with your daycare providers to do some ongoing education, which I think is tremendous. And I think from my feedback that I've heard that they really enjoy that.
Yeah, they do. Education is so important because, you know, it's one thing for me to say to a provider, okay, you have to give them X, Y, and Z, but when you embellish that or supplement that with, this is why, it's more meaningful, and it also gives the provider a deeper understanding. And parents, they pass that information along to parents because, you know,
great point.
They also need to be educated.
Sure.
And so we do a ton of education with our providers. I usually host 2 or sometimes 3. Used to be in person, obviously, for the past few years they've been on virtual, like Zoom type meetings. We're hopefully one day working back to at least maybe a hybrid. Because there are
hybrid
some
models are great.
Absolutely, because there is some advantages to the online Zoom format, but that hands-on in person, you get those organic conversations that crop up when you're in a room full of people that might not necessarily always come up when you're sitting in person. But the education is so important, and giving them the resources, anything that we can do to help them not only encourage the children to eat better, but educate the parents so they can continue that good, healthy eating lifestyle at home. So there's more continuity across the board for the kids. And obviously, as they grow up and they transition into school, the school meals reflect the same kind of nutrition goals. So that continuity also continues.
Another great point. Absolutely.
Yeah. But education, so we try to give them as much support as we can, resources, educational tools. Last year I was able to secure for them a food safety kit. So they got this really cool insulated tote bag with thermometers for their freezers and fridges, a meat thermometer, all kinds of stuff, some pamphlets and like educational tools in there. You know, anything like that can just supplement what they're already doing and help them do a better job than they're already doing.
Yeah, because I think you're really happy with the daycares and the performance of the daycares and what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And this just improves on that.
And like you touched on, daycare is so important, and over the years there have been fewer and fewer childcares in our counties. So that's putting a crunch on the workforce, because if there's no childcare, then the parent can't go to work. So being able to support these daycares, not just with education, but financially with the reimbursement that they get from the USDA, is so critical.
Yeah, so our daycare providers really are unsung heroes.
They really
oftentimes. I know the parents really appreciate them, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Their value could not be understated.
And so part of that each day is a menu?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah.
So they have to plan their menu out for the week usually, which aligns with the state licensing regulations anyway, so we try to also make things as easy as possible.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a menu, so parents know what the children are going to be eating. The children also usually know what they're going to be eating.
Wow, great.
And it just creates that transparency.
Well, and I hear another word in there, communication.
Yes.
It sounds like you're really, you and the daycare providers and the parents and the kids, really do a great job of communicating.
Absolutely, because communication is key to so much, and as long as those channels of communication are open, providers know that they can, if they're struggling with something or they have a question or they need support in a certain area, they can convey that to me, and I can then in turn try to see what I can do to support that. And parents too. Parents will vocalize some struggles. Maybe they're having difficulty at home getting a child to eat particular foods that they know the child is eating in daycare, which does happen. So,
kids are kids.
Kids are kids.
Yeah, we'll let that. We'll let them.
Your French toast tastes better than Miss Anna's or whatever.
That's great.
But parents will sometimes reach out to providers and say, hey, what are you doing? What can I do? And then the provider can turn around and say, do you have anything that I can do to support the parents?
Wow,
so,
great.
It's a little bit of a ripple effect, but
I love it.
It's important.
I love it. That's great. Well, and you, I don't know if you know this number, but I was wondering if you knew roughly in the ballpark of how many kids are actually being served by the 41 daycares.
So it averages about 450 a month. And at the end of the year, that equals out to somewhere in the ballpark of about 161,000 meals.
Wow.
Just in those 3 counties. So
I just want to high five you right now. It's like, wow.
Yeah, it's a big number. And if it could be more. I mean, and in reality, it actually is more, because the providers are serving more than just those 3 that they can claim. Those, so that number is actually larger.
That's awesome. Say it one more time, would you?
161,000 meals.
And some 400 plus
400.
children.
Yep, average
per
about
month.
450 per month.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
Absolutely.
phenomenal. Fantastic. I want to end on that note, but there's this one last question I wanted to ask, and that is just so people understand how the financial piece of it works, that we are reimbursed sort of through the grant from the state that then is distributed out through our finance department.
Correct.
Electronically.
Right, yes. So ultimately it comes from the federal government. So they send the funds to the state administers them to their sponsors, which BROC Community
Consider a
Action
sponsor.
is
Okay, yeah.
the sponsor. And then yes, we distribute those reimbursements via direct deposit right to the providers' bank accounts so that they can turn around and buy those.
Makes their business more viable too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and with rising food costs, which you said earlier, Amy, which is everyone watching knows is a real issue right now.
Yeah.
That puts pressure on those daycares and makes it more difficult to operate.
Absolutely.
So that helps relieve that somewhat.
Even before this inflation, food cost is usually one of the highest costs.
Okay.
And so with the added inflation, it's just putting it in a really critical point right now. So any support that we can offer them, even if it's like, partnering with last week's program, Spotlight Amy, to be able to give the providers some diapers.
Got it. Through our food shelf.
Through our food shelf.
It's getting programs to complement each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not seem like much. There's not a ton of diapers.
Oh, that's important.
Every penny counts.
Right.
So,
diapers are a big deal.
Absolutely.
Anybody who's raised kids knows that. So one last thing, and then just want to say, as far as you yourself have received some certifications recently, national certifications, and if you want to just touch on that just very briefly.
Yeah. So there is a wonderful organization called the National CACFP Sponsors Association, and at a national level, they do incredible work, and their focus is almost entirely on sponsors, supporting us sponsors to be able to do what we do. They do everything from trainings to providing educational resources and also helping us further develop our professional careers.
Sure.
And so there are two certification programs that they offer. One is the CACFP Child Care Nutrition Specialist. I might have the wording off just a little bit. And the other one is a management, related more specifically to management. And so I had to go through quite an extensive amount of training in all areas of CACFP, including things like civil rights and financial accountability. So obviously the nutrition stuff and the meal patterns and all that stuff, but also the real nit and gritty behind the scenes work. So having to have been trained many hours in those areas to gain that certification. And I hold both sort of certifications now. So
and we're very proud of you for
thank
that.
you.
BROC Community Action, but congratulations on that, and furthering your own education within even your 14 years on the job.
Hey, there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, and obtaining that. So one last thing, and that I know there was one other accomplishment I just want to point to that under your watch, if you will, running this program for BROC Community Action is the fact that all the providers are now providing reports electronically. Which is, we're talking about efficiency and effectiveness, and it's the new way, to
Absolutely.
Not have things in hard copy and paper and processing.
Yeah, and it's the paper version of reporting was quite cumbersome. I always likened it to those that remember SAT tests. It was just a whole bunch of bubbles.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to do it online, and it's funny, we just recently did this with the last handful, and all of them were a little nervous at first to make that change, and all of them have been childcare providers for more than 20 years.
Wow.
So they're seasoned vets.
Awesome.
So change sometimes can come difficult, but they all individually have said, wow, I can't believe I waited so long. This is so much easier.
Awesome.
And again, it's all about making it easy and accessible for our providers because they have enough on their plates taking care of the kiddos. So
they're the unsung heroes, and so are you, Amy Fales.
Thank you.
We want to say thank you for coming on BROC Talk Program Spotlight today. We are out of time here at PEG TV, but we want to thank you all for watching. I'm Tom Donahue, your host. See you soon.